Hello, everyone. I'm going to kick this day off with a bit of an obnoxious thing. I'm going to ask about your age. How many of you are over 55? Please raise a hand. Don't be shy. How about between 40 and 54? Yeah? Between 25 and 39? And anyone under 24? One? None? Okay. You probably know which generation you belong to, but here's a rough overview. And today I'm going to talk about two things. The one being the generation mentioned last, the Generation C. Born from the mid-90s and up into the 2000s, like we just saw, not many of them present today. This is a generation very different from millennials. It's a generation that will soon consist of, make the population, more than 30%, will consist of more than 30% of the population just a few years from now. And it's a generation that you are soon about to hire into your companies, or whose companies you're about to compete with. But before I dive into the second thing I'll talk about today, let me introduce myself. My name is Camilla, and I'm the founder and CEO of Lix, a company with a purpose of completely changing higher education for students all over the world. Today we're on the very first step of the journey in Lix, making studying convenient and affordable by gathering all your textbooks in one place on your laptop. And we give students the tools they need to study more effectively. I founded Lix with the initial idea of this Spotify for textbooks, but we have come a long way since then, now 3.5 years later. Today we're 35 people, have raised more than $7.5 million in investments from people like Anders Holt Poulsen and David Helgesen, and Tom Yaelers before he had to go and be our Minister of Education. And we have 20,000 students on our platform on a monthly basis. We work with global textbook publishers like Pearson, McGraw-Hill, and Wiley as our closest partners. And we have close ties to both universities and researchers to explore this intersection of educational technology research and business. And we're operating in a market 4 times the size of the music industry, with only 5% of all the content, all the textbooks in higher education being digitally available. But that's actually not the important part here. Not for me. What is important is why we do it. We want to make consumption of educational content flexible. Give students the tools they need to collaborate and to enhance their learning process, both in the collaboration and as an individual student. And we want to create feedback loops so they have an idea of how they're doing during the semester and not just when they go to the exam. And ultimately, we want to create the best possible learning experience for future students and make the physical textbook obsolete. We are working on something that, in my perspective, matters a lot to a lot of people and to the society we live in and the world we will have shaped years from now through an education system that might look like the same, but also completely different. And that's the purpose of the company. And that is the second thing I'll talk about today. Purpose. And more specifically, a purpose-driven generation, and that is Generation C. So, what is purpose actually? Here you have the definition. The reason for which something is done or created, or for which something exists. For Gen Z, purpose is one of the most important things in their job and career. In a study of over 2,000 people, released in the end of 2017, researchers found that For the first time, we see a generation prioritizing purpose in their work. While tons of research shows that millennials, the generation before, are driven by work-life balance, security, and growth, and studies find that those born after 1994 are more driven by purpose, passion, and impact. So in other words, Gen Z are much more concerned with the bigger picture and how they can contribute than the generations before them. So what is it with purpose that makes this generation so fired up? Let's have a look at the broader perspective. This is a generation that has never known a world without the internet. They're the true digital natives. They have their friends, family, travel, exploring the world, information right at their fingertips. They have more options for what to do with their life than any other generation. The world is wide open when it comes to education, where they want to live, what diet to follow, which movies to see, which blogs to read, and so on. They have so many options. They've seen their peers rise to financial success by putting videos on YouTube, pictures on Instagram, blogging, or starting an online business. But it's also a generation that has grown up with an extreme exposure of media and information, telling them that the world is becoming a terrible place to live in, and that more bad than good are happening in the world. Even though most of them haven't experienced school shootings, terrorist attacks, the oceans dying, or big corporations making horrible decisions of how to earn more money firsthand, they've seen it all virtually. Only 6% of them trust corporations to do the right thing, opposed to 60% of prior generations. And when you ask them if you ask them to describe these corporations, they typically throw in words such as exploitative, greedy, selfish, not trustworthy. And like that wasn't enough, only 1 in 10 trust the government to do the right thing. Some of all this disbelief is likely caused by the financial crisis in 2008 during their upbringing, and the feeling of everyone wanting something from them all the time through the excessive levels of advertisement today. And with all those things in mind, it makes sense that this generation needs a strong sense of purpose to stay motivated. And since they don't believe that corporations and governments will take their part of the will do their part of the job, they believe that they are the one, and they're the generation to carry the burden and clean up the mess from the prior generations. So the only thing to do for them is to take matters into their own hands and fix what is broken if they want it fixed. In that sense, purpose can be a motivation towards a better world and a better life for them. Now, that was a bit of the broader perspective. In another study, millennials and Gen Z were asked to rate the importance of 28 work value priorities, ranging from salary and benefits to the importance of fun in the work environment. And this is the top 5 for both generations. As you see, millennials are highly focused around their lifestyle, work-life balance, and personal growth. Whereas Gen Z is concerned with working on something they are passionate about, taking pride in the work they do in a company that they can identify with. More so than having a balanced lifestyle like the generation before them. They're interested in the bigger picture and not as much in themselves. So this is a generation that wants to work hard for what they believe in, has the knowledge and access to constantly adapt their skills, and are highly driven to do so. To add another perspective, Gen Zs were asked what employers like yourself could do to improve the workspace. And their answer was mental health support as one of the top choices, together with career and educational support. And this is a thing I recognize in a lot of people I meet in their early 20s. They put this extreme pressure on themselves and have this pressure from society and friends and family to become a success. And it makes them anxious and it makes them collapse under the pressure. And there is a constant pressure from social media, and the general media for that matter, to be the perfect version of yourself. They are bombarded with the illusion of the perfect life from social influencers and the bang, get-rich-quick headlines in the media. Both things showing only the final result. Most often exaggerated and completely neglecting the journey of how those successful people got there. And when this generation realized that the vacations to Bali, the perfect girlfriend or boyfriend, perfect body, all the money, perfect dog, clothes, or whatever, is not their reality, it stresses them out because why is my life not as awesome? I'm smart. That should be me. And this, together with all the options they have to choose whatever they want all the time, is a good indicator of why it's the most anxious generation to date. And this takes its toll in the workplace. If they're not supported properly by the company they work in, even though the anxiety most likely isn't work-related at all. So I would like to tell you my own story and how I experienced how a strong purpose can keep you moving forward. My journey starts back when I attended university to study business economics. I quickly realized what a hassle the textbooks were, how expensive they were, and how absurd it was for me to be sitting at an exam and flipping through my book with my thumb like this to find a theory I needed for an exam answer. I was using Spotify and Netflix and thought, hey, there must be something similar for my textbooks. But there wasn't. So there I got the idea of making a service for students like Netflix or Spotify for the textbooks. I started working on the idea while still in university, where I could make less and less sense of it all because I couldn't see why I needed that degree. So I ended up dropping out, moving back in with my mom, taking a full-time job in an office and a part-time job in the evening as a waitress to earn money and get started. I then convinced the bank to give me a loan. I found an external software partner to help me out. And then I went bankrupt a year later. Great start. After having paid all my money to the software partner and standing there without anything and actually having no idea what I was doing. I then found a co-founder and 3 engineers and a designer and started again. This time with some investors to help us out. For 1.5 years, I lived on my friend's couch in her studio apartment, and that was in the kitchen, in the living room. It was the same room, all of it. Not getting a salary. And that was how Lix was born. Through continuous learning, personal growth, and several personal breakdowns along the way. But I had a strong belief that there was something here that just wasn't right and wasn't fair, and that it needed to be fixed. So that's why I kept going. And now, 1 bankrupt company, and 5 years later, I'm here. Still putting up a fight together with the rest of the team, with the purpose of actually improving our education system and doing something good in the world because it seems broken. So why should you care about all this? Because this is in many ways a very misunderstood generation of highly driven, adaptive people that cares about something else than themselves. They could care about your companies, and they could care so much that they want to work to make your vision a reality if you give them the purpose to do so. But they're fragile, and they're under an enormous pressure, especially from themselves. So you need to give them a hand and show them the way to make them thrive and ultimately become a success. And you should care, because this generation is about to enter the workforce, And if you're not a company worth fighting for, they will start fighting for themselves in a restless attempt to disrupt you. So, what can you do to attract and keep this generation? First of all, you need to tell them why. Establish your purpose clearly and mean it, and show it in everything you do internally and externally. Why are you a company worth fighting for? And what sets you aside from all the big corporations that they don't trust? And can they trust you? Second, show them how. How are they going to become a success in your company? You need to show them the journey and that Rome wasn't built in one day. This could be through a graduate program, giving them a mentor that will support them, taking the request for mental health seriously, and last but not least, don't discard potential candidates just because they didn't go the traditional way. Many of the most talented people I know are self-taught. So this all might seem like a big job to attract and keep this generation, and it probably is. But this is how things are changing, in my perspective, in business today, and as we know it. And since this generation will be a huge part of the workforce just years from now, the time to do something is now. And remember that since this generation has been exposed to constant advertisement, false sustainability reports, and what's not, they're quick to call bullshit as soon as you're not following through. Overall, there were so many things I wanted to have brought into this talk today, but couldn't. So to share the message and make a bit of a statement of everything I just said, I gathered the key points from studies and books I went through while doing my research for this talk and wrote a book about it. It's called The New Generation. It's not perfect, but it's short and straight to the point, and it delivers the message that it should. So if you want to know more about this generation from a Scandinavian Gen Z's perspective, you can check it out on Lix or Amazon Kindle from November 1st. And to wrap it all up, I just want to finish off with the one point to remember from this talk, and that is, if you can't convince them why, they won't join. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Camilla, Hessellund, Lastein. Please join me in the seats over here for a Q&A. I think we could all really feel that you are really personally invested in this whole topic of generation. Oh, sorry, here, sorry, of Generation C and being a part of the Generation C. Could you be even more detailed in what you see as the differences in your style of leadership as a part of the Generation C compared to previous generations?
I think some of the biggest differences are that Lix was started based on purpose. And personally, I know that we are supposed to make a very valuable and profit-giving business, and that is oftentimes the focus and the objective with creating a company. But that's actually not why I started. And I think that shows a lot in the way I lead the team and motivate the team.
How so?
I talk a lot about why we do what we do. And I talk less about how we're going to do it, because I expect that we only hire people that are so talented that they can figure out a way themselves. So as long as they know where we're going and that we need to do it fast, then together we can find a way there. And most often, they know much more about their respective area than I do as the CEO of the company.
You touched briefly upon your own personal journey in this, and I think that there's a common denominator between you and the next two speakers in this session, which is that you're all willing to take personal risks. And as you just said, you put your whole life situation on the line, and at some point you actually went bankrupt. Were you never afraid of failing?
I think when you start a business and you get the funny looks from your classmates when you drop out, and everyone asks, "Oh, what are you going to do now?" And you don't have a plan B, and what's going to happen to you? Are you going to live in a wooden box in the street? Like, it's a terrible thing. And I think when you go through those things, that just as an example, you start to not, sorry about my language, but give us many shits. So you actually start to focus much more on the goal and your own, what drives you as a person, opposed to what other people expect from you.
But you still have investors to consider.
Yeah. And yeah, and of course we're often very aligned because I have the company in mind, and so do they. So we're in the same boat, and we want what's best for the company.
Even though it's a successful company already, it's still a young company, and surely, like any other leaders, you have identified some weak spots in your own personal leadership style. What are you working on in your own leadership qualities?
Oh, I need more time to elaborate on that. Well, first of all, this journey just in general, I don't have much experience, so I needed to learn so many things on just how to work and how to become a leader and how to motivate people, how to give proper feedback, how to, put out the guiding star so everyone knows where we're going. And, all the basic leader qualities I had to learn in a very small amount of time. Yeah, so I'm working a lot on a lot of areas.
I would like to also talk about one of the areas in which it's very clear that you're part of a different generation of leaders. I'd like to bring forward a picture, which is your profile picture on Instagram. Here you are. This is the CEO of $1 million company with bunny ears and some type of nose. What do you think this profile pic says about this CEO?
That I have, I don't know. But why? The big question here is, why should it say anything? To me, it doesn't say anything. To me, it says that I am, not afraid to be myself, and that I don't want to be defined by business as usual and what people expect from business leaders today.
To me, it also sends a signal of someone who doesn't take herself too seriously. Is that how you feel?
Definitely.
So I also noticed the cover of your computer. I think we have a picture of that as well. So this is the cover of the computer that you bring to meetings with potential investors.
Yeah.
Clearly, you are not following traditional codes. So do you ever fear that people don't take you as seriously because of that?
No, I actually don't. I think I have been, since I started this company, I was 20 at the time, I have been met with a lot of, no offense, businessmen in suits, sitting like this when I walked in on the stage.
Right.
Yeah, and then, you just have to prove them wrong. And I think I've just done that so many times now that I really stopped caring, because I know that I will get my message through when, they meet me in person. Yeah.
That's a great point. Very inspirational. And also, you talking about the codes that traditional generations follow, you seem to have a different approach. Traditionally, luxury cars and luxury houses and big wardrobes state, like, here's a very successful, important person. But you have chosen very differently in terms of living situation.
Yeah, you can say so. Yeah, I live in a 7 square meter room on Österbro, where I rented from one of my friends, and I don't own much other than almost the clothes I'm wearing and my bike.
Wow. And you don't need all these symbols of material goods and wealth?
No, I don't feel like I need it at all. Maybe at some point I'll change my mind, but for now it really doesn't seem like it's that important.
And so how do you turn people around when you're met with, let's just call it ageism?
Sorry?
How do you turn people around? How do you make them not judge you by your age?
I think it's about, showing that you're a person worth investing in, or worth, working with, or worth working for. Even though I don't like that term, but it's. I think it's, I have tried to make it a habit of consistent high performance, because it takes a lot more for me to jump over the bar of where people will respect me than it does for a lot of other people. And I usually use the anecdote of this pitch where I was out, trying to raise money for the company a long time ago. And there was a guy in his 30s walking on stage with a suit, and you can see the body language in the room was quite, open and friendly, and let me see what this guy got. And as soon as I walked on stage, I could see that it was this, and the expectations were very low. But I could also see that, by giving a good performance and continuing to do so, you can change people's minds.
Because you knew you had a good product.
Yeah.
Yeah. So listen, our time is almost up, but 10 years from now, you might be sitting in this audience, listening to the next young rising star.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think will be the skills and the mindset that the next generations need?
As a leader, or?
As a leader, yeah.
I think that they need to be hyper aware of their employees. Now it's an employees market, of course, and the times fluctuate, but especially just, referring back to my talk, this generation is just so different. They need to have a strong purpose. I think that is basically one of the most important things. It's less than 50% of the Gen Zs that actually wants to work for a private company, which is something I also found. A lot of people want to work for non-profits or the government, which is a very different tendency from what we've seen before. So you need to have either a good cause or a strong why.
I think we can sum everything up to that everything comes back to purpose.
Yeah.
Right. Camilla, it has been very interesting to listen to you. Please give her a big applause. Camilla Hessellund, Lastein.